Let's go back to Romans. Look for a moment in chapter 3. Verse 10, as it is written, there is none righteous, not even one. I think he put that not even one in there because if he'd have just said there's none righteous, someone would have said, yes, I know, but. No, not even one. Look at verse 12. There is none who does good. There is not even one. You know, it goes back to this thing, how many times did Adam and Eve sin before they were cast out of the presence of God? Once. How many times have you sinned? Can't even begin to count it with a calculator or a supercomputer. We're not good. Maybe if you compare your life to Hitler or Mussolini, you would demonstrate some virtue, but compared to a holy God who is all love, you prove to be loveless without holiness. You say, oh, I'm not as loveless as all that. I can use your marriage as an example. How difficult is it for you to love one another as you ought? How many fights do you get in? Squabbles, arguments. Paul says in verse 19, now we know that whatever the law says, it speaks to those who are under the law. And here's the purpose of the law, so that every mouth may be closed and all the world may become accountable to God. The purpose of God pointing out our sin is a kind purpose. It's to shut our mouths, that we not boast before Him. He seeks to cage us in with the law so that we see that we cannot save ourselves. We cannot make ourselves acceptable to Him. To shut us off from every human hope of virtue and merit so that we might fall upon Christ, who is the way, the truth, and the life, the only begotten Son of the living God, the once and for all sacrifice that pays for the sin of man. Now he goes on and he says this, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. We don't have much time to really grasp this, but I just want you to think about this. In modern contemporary thought, this means that God made us for a glorious purpose, and we have not reached that glorious purpose because of our sin. Well, that's part of it, but I don't think that's the main thought. The main thought is this: we were made for the glory of God. And we have fallen short of that, and that's why we're so miserable. You see, as I share often, I make longbows, and you can shoot one of my bows very, very far. It's a good bow. But you can't play music on it. Now you can kill a deer with it, but you can't play music on it because it wasn't made for that purpose. And if you try to play music on one of my longbows, you will be frustrated, and so will everyone around you. You were made for God, and that is why man is so frustrated. We were made for His glory, His purposes. And one of the greatest sins is when the giftedness that He's given each one of us is not used for Him. For Him. Now, having spoken much about this, the sin of man, we have in verse 24, being justified as a gift by His grace through the redemption which is in Christ Jesus. Now, what does justified mean? Justified means this, that although men have sinned and deserve condemnation, that God is able to justify man or declare man to be right with Him. You see that? To justify means, it's actually sort of a legal or a forensic term. It means to declare someone legally right before the throne of God. You see that? So the moment a person believes in Jesus Christ, it means that God declares that person to have a right standing with Him legally, and God treats that person as having a right standing with Him.